This commandment that Jesus gives us may sound so simple that there's not much to say about it, but I do think we can, I think there are a couple of things we can talk about in. First of all, what's new about this commandment is not the love part. What's new about this commandment is to love one another as I have loved you. The Jews were familiar with loving. It was the object of the love that Jesus makes different. In a different gospel, part of the gospel, you'll remember that Jesus says, "You have heard it said, you shall love your friends and hate your enemies. But I tell you, love your enemies. Do good to those who hurt you, pray for those who persecute you." And this is another way of saying it. This is in John's gospel. Love one another as I have loved you. And how did Jesus love them? How does Jesus love us? He loved those who were not even yet his friends. I know we've kind of gotten in the habit of thinking that, Jesus came to save those who started following him. But Jesus came to save everyone. Those who loved him and those who hated him, those who followed him and those who didn't. Remember, you may not remember, that's fine. But a few weeks ago when I talked about the woman caught in adultery, I tried to point out that Jesus wasn't there just to save the woman caught in adultery, but also the Pharisees and the other religious leaders who were trying to stone her. Jesus came to save Peter, who denied him, came to save Judas, who betrayed him, came to save the Jewish leaders who handed him over to the Jews, or to the Romans. He came to save the Romans who killed him, Herod, who mocked him, Pilate, who handed him over, etc., etc. As Paul said, while we were still sinners, Christ saved us. Came to save us. And so this idea of love one another as I have loved you is something different and new. And it must have made a big impression on people. Because in Antioch, where they were first called Christians, we read in Acts of the Apostles that they commented, "See how these Christians love one another." It must have been something new, or they wouldn't have remarked on it. And in fact, they came to be known. What Jesus says comes true. This is how they will know that you belong to me, if you love one another. And this, in fact, is how they became to be called Christians. And it's a message we need to learn and put into practice, especially again, now when all it takes to be an enemy, apparently, is to disagree with someone, or to hold a different political opinion than someone else. The world, as we look out on it, is full of hate. And unfortunately, it's not just the world. People within the church can't even seem to talk to each other. The same divisions we see in the world, we see in the church. Are you for John Paul II or against it? For Francis or against it? Are you a liberal Catholic or a conservative Catholic? And even Christians can't talk to one another about many things. Sometimes I wonder if we're talking to each other about anything. And we've lost the ability in this country and in the church, maybe in the whole world, I don't know, of having a discussion or an argument in the philosophical sense of it. Why do you think the border should be closed? Tell me why you think the border should be closed. You know, I disagree with you because of this reason. You want the border open? I disagree with that, and here's why. Tell me why you want the border open. Why do you like Francis? Tell me why you like Francis. This is what bothers me about Pope Francis. This is what bothers me about Benedict XVI and what he wrote. And why does Jesus make it a commandment? I think for many reasons. We have commandments for different reasons, but one reason is this isn't easy to do. And so we might fall into the world's way of thinking, well, you disagree with me, you're different than I, then so I don't like you so much. I won't talk to you. Jesus doesn't give us that option. He gives us a commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. And the idea is Jesus loves us, and we understand, we learn what love really is, and so then we go out and love others. We go out and we're willing to lay our lives down. We're willing to put ourselves aside for others' good. And the world desperately needs to learn what love is, and we're the ones who can teach them, who can show them. And Jesus didn't say, by this you'll know them, that you proclaim this doctrine or that doctrine, or that you get this law passed or that law passed or whatever. And those may be important things. I'm not discounting them. But this is how people will know we're Christians, when they look at us and they see people who know how to love and who are willing to love. And if we don't teach the world that, who's going to? And Jesus calls us into the church partly for that reason. And we all know that we're called into the church for salvation. Even the kids know that. And I asked them Friday, why did God call you into the church? And they're pretty clear about it. So we can get to heaven. Sure, that's a good answer for a second grader or fourth grader. But they need to start learning, and we certainly need to learn, adults, that there's another reason that God calls us into His church. You remember a comment, perhaps you remember a comment I made about in Palm Sunday, the donkey, you know. The Master has need of it. So the Master has need of us. That's the reason, the other reason that God calls us into the church. He needs us because He needs the church to do something. And certainly one of the reasons He needs us is so that we can teach the world what love really is. We can teach the world how to love people who maybe aren't our friends. How to love people who disagree with us. How to love people that hold a different opinion than we do. How to love people who are actively trying to make something happen in society with which we don't agree. And it's fine that maybe we have a different agenda. Maybe we have different laws or whatever. But the real Christian does everything in love. And it's hard to do. But Jesus commands us to do it. And so we don't really have an option. We really don't have the option to sit there and scream at people on TV or to whatever, you know. At least they'll know you're with me. You belong to me. If you love the way I love. We need to work harder at that, I think, as Christians. To love as Jesus loved. To love everyone that comes in front of us during the day. Friend and foe alike, liberal and conservative, Democrat, Republican, whatever race, it doesn't matter. This is how they'll know we're Christians, and this is how we will really belong to Him. By loving. And if we can love each other as Christ loved us and loves us, then we can go out and we really then can teach something vital to the world.